Hello everybody and welcome to Giz 27, an over-analysis of Phantom Island. I will be your professor, Tony Love Poundstone, and let's just get right into it. In this lesson we're going to go over how Phantom Island was made, every song structure and lyrics, and analyzing how they work a little bit. We're going to work on identifying all the vocalists in King Gizzard because there's a lot of trade-offs and it really helps you ground who's singing and who's singing where. And then finally we're going to talk about my review, like my rating of Phantom Island and where I believe it fits into the Phantom Island, into the King Gizzard discography. So in my presentation, I'm going to have some moments, like time stamps. So feel free to have the album open and to pause if you're curious about what I'm referring to as we go along, because, you know, it will be relevant when you take your exam. So first and foremost, let's just talk about how Phantom Island was made, right? If you're familiar with King Gizzard, you know that last year they came out with Flight B741, and you might have heard that that Phantom Island is like a sister companion album to that. So essentially what they did was they recorded 20 demos of songs all at around the same time. Like they wrote all the songs on this album and the previous one in that studio, you know, where they're all wearing the flight suits and everything. And what this means is that all these songs and these demos were recorded without a knowledge of the orchestra eventually being overlaid, which can explain why, you know, normal orchestra songs sound a little bit different than what we get on this record, right? So from there, the Phantom Island songs compared to Flight B741, they're a little bit more, spaced out, a little bit more chill. And the band felt that they were a little too sparse to be its own record, right? Like Flight B741 is very rowdy, upbeat. It's able to sustain listenership easier than the more chilled out version. So these songs being a little sparse is what inspired the collaboration. So these demos that were sent to the orchestrator were jammy and improvisational, which is very different to orchestration, which is not very improvisational. And it makes it very interesting, right? Like, how do you approach getting 10 King Gizzard insanity songs sent to you and figuring out how to orchestrate on top of it? It makes it a very compelling album just from a challenge standpoint. And one important note here is that the song splits between the two records, once they decided that they wanted to do it, were not set in stone. We're going to talk about two songs that were actually moved from Flight B741 to this record because the man who, the arranger decided that he wanted to work on them and he'd rather they were on this record than Flight B741. So once the orchestra was added on top, Giz recorded some overdubs on top of the orchestral recordings. So this means that they were sent songs and then they recorded more guitar tracks on top. They recorded more vocal tracks on top. And then, as always, the final mix is by Stu. Now, I find that this is notable this time because this album has more layers than anything that they've ever done, right? When you think about King Gizzard, you think about the chunky mixing, right? You think about, Nonagon Infinity sounds like it was, left in the mud for 40 years with, the sun baking down on top of it, where this has a completely different style. So it's very interesting from a production standpoint for a Giz listener as well. So talking about some of the main motifs and sounds of this record, we've got just sonically compared to the last one, which was very bluesy, we've got a lot of 70s psychedelic rock, 70s soft and yacht rock, some old school funk sounds and vocals, which is new for them. And then the orchestra is very cinematic. It's cinematic and it also complements one of the main themes of this record, space. While there is still some flight and some sea and stuff like that, there's a lot of theming of space rather than the sky, like the last one. And with space comes loneliness and missing your loved ones. Feelings of being stranded, existentialism, disorientation, the thoughts about consciousness. And then of course, this concept of a phantom island or a mirage city, if you will, a place or a thing that doesn't actually exist but we long for. To me, the main question that this album is asking is what is the cost of this career, being in King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, on myself, my friends, and my family. It really contemplates what they are missing out by going on this journey. To me, it feels like this album is about the lows of being in King Gizzard often versus the highs of Flight B741. I'm thinking specifically, if you're familiar, the song Field of Vision is a song written by Joey out of like the love and like energy he gets from playing live, and he sees the Orchard of Eyes and he sees Cyclopean and stuff like that. Like he feels like a god, right? Where this album is a lot about missing family, missing home. So going from there, if we're going to be talking about how to identify the vocalist, we got to just identify, here are the 6 band members, and let me walk through them all. So on the left here, this is, I didn't realize I had my mouse over the screen. Well, this is actually helpful. This is Lukey. Lukey plays the bass. This is Ambi. Ambi does a lot of vocals, and he plays a harmonica. Oftentimes he'll play on a keyboard. This is Joey. He's like the solo guitar guy. He whenever there's like a really good solo, it tends to be Joey doing it. Stu has some solos too, but Joey's like he's the best at guitar. And here we got Cookie. Cookie switches between keyboard and playing guitar as well. He's got some vocal duties. He's written some songs himself. We got, of course, the legend Stu, and then Cavs, the drummer. Unfortunately, the last record had a verse sung by Cavs. This one, unfortunately, does not. So let's start going through all the songs, right? First off, we got Phantom Island. This song came out, what was it, like October last year? So before this record came out, I must have listened to this thing like 100 times. They were initially writing it for Flight B741, but it just morphed into something else, right? And honestly, when I'm listening to this song, I can't imagine how Phantom Island would have fit on the last record. Stu called this song, he calls it an overture, which using this quote from AJR here, it's just like, it introduces the piece, right? It's meant to really bring you into what the rest of the album's going for. But personally, I feel like this song, Phantom Island, kind of stands apart from the rest of the album. It's possibly the most cohesive song. I think that SPACEsick is also very cohesive, but like it's also the strongest. It develops in the most interesting way, right? Like you got the strings going into the sick disco beat, and by the end we're going prog rock. I'm imagining like the horns going as people are running in a circle pit. This is a crazy song. Some of my favorite moments here, we got there's like these descending pianos at minute 45 in brass that's also descending over a hard groove. It just feels good. I love the tone of Stu's voice when he's singing the Phantom Island. When the song starts pivoting into the more aggressive section, and then of course the angry horns, they're like kind of getting so close to blown out, with the ascending strings building the crescendo as Ambi's going crazy. One other thing that I'm going to be doing throughout this video also is, so I'm putting all the verses and who sung them, but I'm also marking my favorite to kind of mark like, okay, who do I think had the best verse and sang the best? And for Phantom Island, it's gotta be Ambi. That's the 16 horses galloping. Like that obviously clears the other ones on this. So Phantom Island, if we're that's a banger opener, right? Like that really brings you in. After that, we've got Dead Stick. Now, Dead Stick, personally, the first couple times I heard it, I was just like, this is just like this is like an old school rock song, right? It reminds me of Chicago, or I mentioned Chicago and Steely Dan. Like, it wasn't my favorite, but as time's gone on, I actually really love Dead Stick. I listen to it pretty frequently. This is an example of one of the ones, and you could probably hear that while listening to it, now that I'll mention it. This song was intended for Flight B741. You know, the rowdier, more upbeat album. This is the most like happy, upbeat song on this record. But when the composer heard this song, even though it was intended for the other album, he heard it and he's just like, I know that I can do stuff with this one. You got to give this one to me. And I think that the horns on this song are incredible. For the composer in particular, I really like that Stu has this line, but I listening to the Metal Machine during this. There's like a horn counterpoint, like doing a different melody than he's going for. You know, when I think about King Gizzard songs personally, typically there's like Stu is singing, and then the lead guitar is like mimicking what he's doing underneath it. This is especially true if you listen to anything off of, or think about any song off of Flying Microtonal Banana. The main guitar is always just following the lead voice. But in this album, the composer was able to do a bunch of these counter melodies that make the song so much more interesting. And in this moment of Dead Stick is like the first on the record that makes me think of that. So if I have to pick my favorite vocalist off of this one, I've got to go Joey. He's got verses 2 and 3. The verse 3, he's got like he's putting real stank on his vocal performance there, and Joey's really, I feel like he's really leveled up his vocals. Thinking about going back to Polygon Wonderland or earlier than that, in Polygon Wonderland, he wrote the Horology trilogy. So we're talking Inner Cell, Loyalty into Horology. He sings those, and there's not really much going on with his voice. Same with Work This Time. But over these past couple of years, he's gotten so much better. And he's got some other verses on this record that we'll be talking about it as well. And then, yeah, with the theming of the song, with like the praying in the cockpit, we're all holding hands. I can't believe we made it out alive. It sounds to me like something that would have worked after Hog Calling Contest, you know? There ain't no mud in the sky, and I'm cruising on high on the south. Regardless. Now, Lonely Cosmos, and you'll have to tell me if you agree or disagree. This feels like a real pivot point for the album, right? Phantom Island, to me, it's a banger song. It feels unique. It gets crazy. Dead Stick, another high energy song. This one immediately pulls it back, right? It opens with like, what is it? Like a minute and a half of the cinematic orchestral pieces, which the first time I listened to this record, I really loved it. But the more I listen to it, sometimes I've seen this criticism, and Lonely Cosmos is where I feel it the most, where the orchestra almost feels like added on in some places. And particularly, like, I don't know. I'm going to leave it there for now. One thing that I noticed for this song is a motif that's used a few times throughout this album, which is just like using basic chords, like on like an acoustic guitar, to center a song, right? These songs sonically go from place to place so frequently. It helps to have like this basic chord progression for your brain to be like, okay, this is what we're basing it off of. So Lonely Cosmos starts like this. Silent Spirit's the best example, the easiest to remember. That's like the bop, 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 bop. Right, like then you hear that, and then once everything comes in, you're like, okay, I have something grounding me to what we've got going on here. So Lonely Cosmos, this is where we've now entered space, right? I've the furthest I've ever been from home, contemplating every meteorite as my tombstone. That's a line from Cookie as well. There's the song's a lot about just longing for home, being lonely while out there. And looking at future songs, this is referring to what it's like being on the road, you know? You feel like you're by yourself, looking at nothing. My favorite verse on this song is just Stu's at the beginning. It's a really delicate initial verse, and then kind of like what I was talking with Dead Stick, with the horn going with the beat, going alongside his verse. There's like a string section as he's singing where it's just a beautiful contra melody to what he's singing. And like my favorite moment of this is like at the end of Lonely Cosmos. We switch into a little bit of a joyful moment, right? There's a good joyful vocal. There's good harmony with the orchestra, but then once the band cuts out, it goes back to the orchestra, which just gives you this feeling of desolation. It's all these strings that are going down and bringing you down further and further and further. And then once you hit rock bottom, then we move into Eternal Return, which at the beginning, it just sounds like it rises out of the ashes. With the... And then you got the guitar of like the do-do-do-do, bam-ba-do-ba-do-boo. Okay, sounds like I've got someone who wants to assist momentarily. This old dog's coming home to you. Always return, I'm on a round trip perpetual. This is my cat. Can you contribute anything to this conversation, Conan? How many times do you think that you've heard Eternal Return at this point? Regardless, this song, like I said, I have at the top here. This is a batshit favorite. I love Eternal Return. It is a goofy song, right? Like I've marked my favorite verse here as Cookies. There's a lot of favorites, but Cookies is the one that which way is the right way down the yellow brick road of life? I'm talking. There's a monkey on my back, and it's telling me this ain't a bushwhack. There's like a really goofy guitar going in the back. There's some like drum fills right before Ambi's part where I can't imagine what this song was like in a demo and how you turn it into something. But I really like the direction that it went. Like it has a chorus motif, the eternal return that we can keep coming back to. Just like the song itself is talking about how like they leave home all the time. They miss home, but at least they return eternally. Once the tour ends, once they're done recording with the rehearsals, they eventually return home. I'm on a round trip perpetual. The song, compared to any song that I heard prior to them from this point, it's got the most out there vocals I've heard. It's not the most out there vocals on this album, but it's pretty out there. And this is a song that you can use as an example of King Gizzard's sonic maximalism, where you hear Opta by Bruno Mars and Rose, and you can hear everything going on in the song, and you can understand it, but there's so many layers and so much stuff in this song. It's so difficult to just fully parse it the whole time coming through for the first time, and that could be a positive or a negative. And when you are a guy who's got concert posters of the band and the vinyl, for me it's a good thing because I'm coming back to this record many times. But if you're just trying to listen to it a couple times, give it a review, I can understand why songs like Eternal Return might not be your favorite. But yeah, the beginning of the song, out of the end of Lonely Cosmos, where it brings you down into the dirt and then it pulls you up. I love it. Minute 113, you might have been hearing this. We've got deep voice. Let's do. I'm gonna reach reality. Would she see? Did I do it for her? Or did I do it for me? There's an image right after that I really like the lyrics of this. Like, as I compose myself emotionally, I have a vision of where she'll be. Pulling petals off a daisy, but don't forget to return eternally. The pulling petals off a daisy, devils. Talking about his daughter. It's like it conjures an image of when he's on the road, he's thinking about his daughter back home, pulling. Yeah, he loves me not, and how it tears him apart. And it, I don't know. The Eternal Return kind of gets to me, in a way that Anoxia or Hell's Itch, about you having a sunburn so bad you're losing your mind, kind of doesn't. It touches the soul a little bit more. This song has a stanky sax all over it. I know that I put 240 here, but it's kind of in the background even earlier than that. But like talking about what is it? Ambi's verse and Joey's verse, there's just a stank, awesome saxophone littered around this song. I'm thinking about Joey's verse near the end, like similarly to Stu's, it really like pulls at me. It's like, the fuck, I miss the smell hidden in your clothing. I tell myself don't worry because I'll be coming back. Do 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 do. I love Eternal Return. This is a good song. This is a great song, but it's so weird. So, from Eternal Return, a song that I think is great is one. I'm mixed on PANSY, okay? I've marked here that it is my least favorite and least memorable, but the more that I listen to this record, the more I like it as a whole more, and the more I can appreciate the ideas in PANSY, even if it doesn't work as well for me. So PANSY is theory of consciousness. It's like the view that consciousness is a fundamental feature of the universe. At one point in the first or second verse, Stu says, "An every grain of sand holds a mind that can expand from now until the next Big Bang." Don't let that be like your idea of what the whole thing is. I was like looking into it a little bit, but regardless, it's every lyrical handoff in this, and you could see we've got a lot of different people singing on this song. They're all dissecting different profound philosophical concepts, which is, this is more standard Gizzard, right? Not talking about loving your daughter, but talking about the mind. On this song, we also have there's a couple verses by Lucas, the bass player, but this is the one where he sings the most, where it's like I am the wind and sea. I am that desert plain, for the mind, for the astral plane. I am the brother of earth. You don't really need to worry about identifying him too much. He's got a verse here. He does like a chorus in Eternal Return, and he sings a bit in Antarctica and Flight B741, but that's like it. At the beginning of the song, we have a couple sonic callbacks to Ice 5. There's like a little bit of the groove there, and then if you listen to the guitar with the bing, bing, it's the Ice 5 bing, and then it switches into this groove with a single low bass line, and it's like, it's not my favorite, but it evolves so interestingly. Like when it transforms into Joey's verse, where it's just this weird combination of country funk with the funk guitar, like the bam. You've been all the time. Regardless, PANSY. Now, from PANSY, we go to SPACEsick. Now, I did read a couple of reviews of this album just to see what other people's perspective of it is, because I'm not a normal listener to King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, right? I'm predisposed to understand what they're going for and to listen to it many times and love it. But this is one that seems to be enjoyed by everyone who's listened to it. And I agree. I think SPACEsick is very well constructed, especially thematically. The beginning and the end, like it all connects the storylines, where like PANSY, it's sonically going different places. You kind of don't really know what's going on. Even if you're reading the lyrics, it doesn't make as much sense. And simply, if we look at Stu's verse 1 and 2 and verse 6, these are like the key verses to this song. And it's really just a letter from space. June 22, what I wouldn't do for a meal with you. Real fork, real knife, and a shit diner. The sound of... Regardless. And then we've got a couple other verses, like Ambi's talking about wanting to be an astronaut, going to space. He's doing like the Major Tom countdown from 10 to 1 and so on. Then it goes to Joey, and then it comes back to Stu, right? Like back to this message, like must have been a solar flare. Where was I at the zoo? Think about them and think about you. Says your brother told me they cried a lot when he saw a guy who looked like their pop. This is a song like, it's a longing for family. Like I said, it feels like Stu's struggling with putting his tour and the music, trying to keep them all together, and he just longs for his family. There's some lines in here that do hit, like this one in particular gets me. But I also like this line from Stu in verse 1 or verse 2. Earthrise doesn't hit quite the same when you've been spun merry-go-round all day. So Earthrise, let me see if I go back. This kind of reminds me of Earthrise. If you're on the moon and you could, like, you know how you could see like a sunrise from Earth. Earthrise is like seeing a sunrise, but instead of it being a sun, it's the Earth. And you can imagine, if you're in space, that probably looks sick as hell. But kind of like, when you're playing to the field of vision, right? You're playing at the Gorge, you're playing at Red Rocks to crowds of 10,000 people. Like, it's incredible, but Earthrise, or that incredible feeling, doesn't hit quite the same when you've just been doing it over and over and over. Sometimes you just want to go home, and especially when your kids are crying when they see other people who look like you, right? Like, even though you're in space, you're floating in space, you've made it. Sometimes it can get you a little sick. I really like Stu's verses on this. I find this song touching, and I like it a lot. But, oh yeah, before I go into that, I really love the opening of this. It's like a spacey sci-fi. It feels like an old sci-fi movie. And then the acoustic guitar, the like that's just it's just a good spacey rock riff. This is just it's a good song. SPACEsick is a great song. I hope other people like it too. But if we're actually gonna go to my favorite, and this is surprising. I didn't think that I'd actually like a song more than Phantom Island, the title track, but I really love this song, Aerodynamic. Got a little bit of basic chords at the beginning, and really the theme of Aerodynamic, it's especially felt by Stu, where like he's longing to be a star in space. He's longing to grow wings and fly, but in reality, it's a mirage city. It's a phantom island. Ambi says, Holy Land is a figment. Never gonna get there, never gonna get there. Right? Like, you can wish for these things, but it's not gonna happen. It's a battle of dreams versus constraints. Now, throughout this album, and I feel like this might be, if you're listening to this record, you might be underappreciating how tasty some of the guitar lines on this record are, because they're just blended in. Aerodynamic does not have my favorite guitar on this album, but there's some really tasty jammy guitar just straight from the beginning. I feel like I have this whole song locked down. I really like the switch into Ambi's second verse, which is like, lightning strikes upon the nose of my bow, ho, ho, as I'm drifting, trying to stay afloat. But you can see that's not even my favorite verse. I love that. But the album's peak, I believe, is the second half of Stu's verse. So like Stu starts, the moon speaks to me this night. Yeah, she says, follow my light, like I'm off in a compass. So on, he's talking to the moon, asking, and then eventually he says, I have always wondered if I could step out of my body, would I be a fish out of water or a school in harmony? So Miss Moon, if I could have one wish, I'd turn my hands into wings, I'd say goodbye to the fish, and I'd jump from the highest cliff. That part. My tone-deaf ass trying to replicate it. That, to me, is the peak of the album. I love the vocals. They're like almost peaking, right? He brings them really in, and it just feels so transcendent. It feels like my cat feels when I do this. Then after we go through... with Ambi's verse, they're never gonna get there. It switches from what it was going for before into like this really Flight B741 feeling jam that they do until it slowly comes down near the end into another verse that I marked as my favorite. I'm just a big fan of Joey's verse at the end of this song. The one, I'm just floating away on this barrel of paint. Is it just me stranded at sea as a sailor's dream? And I love the like he's just feeling dejected, right? Like you're floating in the sea. You're just gonna watch the waves roll by. At the end, right? Like you can have this desire to grow wings and fly, but if you're out in a barrel of paint in the sea, you can't really do anything. You gotta just take it as it comes. Watch the waves roll by. From 420 on in this song, I think that the bass. I'm a fan of the bass, but I really like the bass at the end of the song and how it fits in with the whole song. Aerodynamic's great. When I look at the Spotify for this album, it appears that beyond the singles, Aerodynamic is the most listened to song, and I respect that. I hope that this one sticks around. I hope that we get a little bit of it live. So from Aerodynamic, we go into Sea of Doubt, which I'm marking as my second least favorite song. I feel like Sea of Doubt's been mentioned on a few Gizzard songs, like the concept of a Sea of Doubt. I'm trying to, like the end of Mirage City. I don't run in the Sea of Doubt. Yeah, I die if I stay here. Regardless, so Sea of Doubt, it's got my favorite guitar work on the album. We've got some, it's this country twang tinge like style. I'm not going to try to replicate that right now. You've gotten enough of me singing off tone. Yeah, it's got this kind of country twang style, which a lot of the guitar on this album does. And got a little bit of it on the last record. I'm not a big country guy. You could just tell looking at me, looking at my shit, that I probably am not. But I think that when they do it is good. But of course I'd say that. Yeah, I don't love the orchestra on this song. And there's like some plinky stuff like the "Where is the man? The rough journey. Where is the crew?" It's not as good for me. But yeah, this idea of a sea of doubt, as you can see, what does the Bible say about doubt? It's you're falling into and navigating this sea of doubt, and then at the end they come out of it victoriously. Like I've noted here, like a lot of the lyrics in the song early on, they're talking about I, and then it switches to we later on. Like especially, I like this line: "We're in a meadow of our minds, basking in its delight," which is me and the bros with some brewskis talking about cinema. You're in the meadow of your minds, basking in the delight of it all. My favorite verse on this song is Ambi's. This one that starts with like, "We'll scatter the ashes from the singing birds of candles in the air." That one. My favorite line from him is like, "And when you're trying to push uphill, the world tends to make you kneel." Some motherfucker's always trying to be ice skating uphill. Regardless. Sea of Doubt is, even though it's my second least favorite, it's still a good song. Like, I'm not even skipping PANSY anymore. I've listened to this record like 20 times. I started skipping PANSY. At one point, I skipped Sea of Doubt once, but I'm not skipping it anymore. Okay, from here we go, from Sea of Doubt, we go to Silent Spirit, Song 9. Now, this is the least listened to song on Spotify, but this song is... I love Silent Spirit. I talked about how Eternal Return is a little goofy, right? You got like the deep voice stew. You got all these different verse handoffs. During Cookie's Wizard of Oz verse, you got the goofy piano. I recommend listening to that goofy piano next time you do it. But Silent Spirit is even goofier. It's got a very basic groove. We got so many vocal handoffs and so many hilarious, just not hilarious, but just entertaining vocal performances. So to me, I think of this song "Silent Spirit" as like a message to a loved one. What's the line? For Joey's second verse, like "I stand on the shoulders of mothers long dead, singing the stories." This idea that we're kind of moving through life eternally, We're just keeping it all moving. Forgive me. I've got to do it in all one take. I'm getting some text messages. My cat's looking at me. Made some mistake. But yeah, so we've got some memorable but disconnected verses, right? If this is your first King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard song, you'd be like, what the heck? What the heck is going on? You've got later, Joey's second verse. The first one I just referenced, but he's the one that does like the time is pregnant with the past. The really high-pitched voices. It's great. I love this song. I've also marked Ambi's verse as a favorite. This is probably a lot of people's favorite moment on the album. "I would say don't be a musician, my son. Be a doctor, lawyer, or a stand-up citizen." That one. Where he's saying, if you're choose what you want to be through life. You can see their life and be like, I want that for myself. But don't be a musician. Try to be a doctor, lawyer, stand-up citizen. This song opens with very basic, choppy, crunchy guitars, but then the moment that the orchestra hits at 11, it's just a pure vibe. This is like the song, once that hits, you can just imagine like walking down a damn city street in the 70s. A little grimy and needs to be repaired, and it's so tasty. Then later on, there's this extended jam. Like, whose verse is that after? And I'm not gonna try to replicate it. But during the solo, there's just the orchestra is laid over top of it, just like ominously, as it propels forward, and like the horns keep bringing it in. Silent Spirit's goofy. This is a goofy song. I'm a big fan of it. Like that's just a big theme of this album too, where they don't have any songs like this. With the way that the orchestra is used, with these country guitar tones, it doesn't sound like anything I've heard before. And with what I was seeing, it seems that there were some comments of just like, shouldn't you have tried to, given that you were making an orchestral album, create something that would complement that well? And, just try to, I guess to me, make pet sounds too. But the thing is, there's already a Pet Sounds. And sure, this album is not perfect. And I'll come back to it. It's not a 10 out of 10. But I've never heard anything like Silent Spirit. And you could take it off of my cold, dead hands, because I'm going to keep listening to it, because it makes me happy. And then we get to our closing track, Grow Wings and Fly. The Fishman Ambi here, coming out of the sea. This is a song that grew out of jams. If you've listened to Shanghai, they did the beginning of the song is part of the jam that they do. Hi, Conan. Like the Bye Bye Shanghai, Bye Bye Shanghai. And typically it would turn into a shouting match between Stu and Ambi saying Bye Bye Shanghai. But yes, so this song grew out of that. It was definitely originally intended for B741. And unlike Dead Stick, which I think is, the horns are brilliant on that song, this one I could actually see fitting on both albums. Having heard it live first, I'm probably predisposed to hearing it like that. But I think that like this one is going to work great on its own live, where they're just jamming to it even without the orchestra. But the orchestra adds another element to it as well. This song is a great thematic resolution to the album. We talked about growing wings and fly on the song Aerodynamic, where like here it's kind of resolving that, because in the end he's going to succeed. I like how at the beginning when Stu's singing like that, I want to drink from the beehive, I want to jump from the tight wire. When you hear him go like I wanna, he's using a little bit of his metal gravelly voice, which I like. I like him adding a little bit of stank. There's more vocal complexity in King Gizzard the further we go. If you go back to even I love Polygon's Wanna Land, the vocals on that album are not it. They're not really doing that much, but they're adding more techniques, and that's just like a little detail. I really like there's just cascading woodwinds and strings at minute 110 between the verses. Like there's between each verse there's a little bit of an instrumental section, and I really like how it sounds at this time. One line that I wanted to mention, because it doesn't say this word when I went to Genius, like the Joey's line, like the yes you must learn to use your wings, munt, but it is I that will be. I'm not going to try to hit that. He does say munt on the record. Munt, if you know, like the soy mutant munt machine, we're talking Murder of the Universe reference in this song right here, baby. That's munt. That's Murder of the Universe on Grow Wings and Fly. And that's where in the music video when he says that, that's where like Ambi spits on his face or something like that. I really like how the guitar sounds in between the verses. There's like this, it's like a Hendrixy kind of technique. It's just the way that they're arpeggiating these major chords, it just really brings the song along. And this song's got a great groove. I remember seeing someone put on someone comment that they wish that the song was 10 minutes long, and I agree. Not fully. I think that it's a decent it's a decent length on the record, but it could go long if they really wanted to. My favorite part of this song, my favorite verse is Ambi's. I really like Joey's too, but my favorite part of the song is actually the very end. After all the singing, it's this really slow denouement where everything gets pulled back a little bit. You could hear a little bit of slide guitar. There's different strings come through, some woodwinds come through, and all throughout it, there's just this beautiful bass playing, this beautiful improvised, just calm bass playing, guiding you through it. It's so gentle. I love my bass, but it just ends again with these beautiful lines. I can savor it. It's one of my favorite parts of the album, honestly, is the end of the song "Grow Wings and Fly," which probably sounds goofy. Now, I made this PowerPoint yesterday or the day before, and I put an 8.5, but honestly, I might be giving this a 9 now. The more that I talk about it, the more that I think about it, the more I actually really love Phantom Island and think that it's a kind of a brilliant album. It's just hard to dissect. You have to listen to it enough to be able to pull the pieces apart and really get what's going on. So to me, it's a highly collaborative album, like Flight B741. And now, to a lot of people, that actually works to its detriment, right? You listen to the first 4 songs off of I'm in Your Mind Fuzz, and they all tie together. They've got one vocalist. There's a very clear theme. Where this, you could be listening to it, especially Lonely Cosmos. It's all these disconnected segments. It can sound a little bit like a mess. But you haven't heard a record like this in that way before, right? Where is it weaker for that? Maybe, maybe not. But when you have 27 records, a little bit of experimentation shouldn't be punished. You shouldn't. The moment that someone's just what if we tried trading off vocal verses like we're freaking the Beastie Boys? You shouldn't just be it sounded way better when you were just doing it one voice for each song, one clear vision for what the song is going to sound like the whole time. I think that it's much more interesting to at least allow the space for these songs to exist. And I think that these 2 albums are really good. I mean, I haven't heard anything really like either of these 2 records with the amount of vocal handoffs that they're doing, and this idea of a new sound every 8 measures. I think this is something that I saw Stu mention, where this was a goal, where every 10 seconds the song sounds completely different, and that's just a really unique auditory experience. So what that allows for is just endless creativity, but then also at the same time, occasionally a little bit of sonic meandering. I mentioned, Lonely Cosmos. The verses they don't gel very well for me. If you're not locked into A Silent Spirit or An Eternal Return, it can feel a little bit meandery the way that it moves from vocalist to vocalist, and you could be paying attention to the lyrics, but sometimes they're talking about a slightly different thing than the previous person one is, and it makes it a little bit harder to grasp onto. It's I don't know how much I believe this, right? I wouldn't change the album at all. I don't know what I'm talking about, but it feels a little overstuffed, and with a lot of the ideas, it feels this could have been expanded on a little bit, right? It feels like it's a little underlong. We're trying to pack it into a 46 minute long record. Which I appreciate. It's got positives and negatives, and I feel like those 2 problems can mute the impact of the occasional sonic brilliance that this has. There's some moments where this album really transcends, to me, a lot of their previous work. Some of the ideas, some of the theming of this record are really special, I believe. I find that the orchestra, even though if the compositions aren't made for an orchestra, it's not the most orchestral sounding album that you could have had, it makes for a great counterpoint. It can be, even though there are times where it feels tacked on, it can be used really well and really effectively. I keep bringing up the song, the end of Lonely Cosmos, where it just keeps descending into sadness. And the way that the band brings it out of the ashes for the start of Eternal Return is something that the orchestra brings to this album that they wouldn't have had they not done it. And it's just a really, like, how do you combine, like, 70s funk, yacht rock, and, like, they get a bit of country kind of sound with orchestra, and then put it all into one cohesive thing. It's so interesting and intriguing from a musician listener perspective, trying to contextualize it also with their other work. I believe that this album improves on repeat listens. I'm dead ass at like 20, probably. Now, a lot of it's because I knew that I was going to be making this video, but still, this album's definitely, it's imperfect, right? There's some great songs on here. Like, I really believe that Aerodynamic is incredible. The title track is an awesome song. Dead Stick is a great song. But there are some that are lesser, but those great songs are, to me, are proof that it's at least that level. And then also a compliment to this record is that it's comparatively accessible. I can, unlike a lot of King Gizzard records, I can play this for my mom if I wanted to, and there would be some songs where she'd be like, "That's weird," but it's nothing like playing the fucking Great Chain of Being or anything off of Petrodragonic Apocalypse, right? Like, the theming is accessible. It's love, largely. Not entirely about climate change, like a typical Gizzard record. It's an accessible record, I believe. So the way that I describe it is that this is an imperfect record. You don't have to agree that it's an 8.5 or a 9 out of 10. I know that a lot of people rate it lower. They're my favorite band. Of course, I'm gonna overrate them a little bit. But I believe that this is a key album in their discography. It's a perspective on what it's like to be a member of King Gizzard that they haven't given before. It's more delicate than it was, and it's so experimental. They're really going for things that they weren't going for before. Now, here's why I put it in my tier list a couple days ago. I don't know. It kind of feels right to me right here, and I know that there's a lot of stuff that people are going to hate looking at this. I have it pretty close to Fight B741, which people hate. I have gotten every hate comment about my placement of this and this. You could put it in the comments for this video. It'll just tell me that you've gotten this far, and I'll take it as a compliment, I guess. I know that people love their Butterfly 3000, but I think that this album fits in the A tier. I think that even if it gets a little bit forgotten about, it feels so relevant. They're doing a full orchestral tour on it too. It's so unique. It's exciting. It should feel exciting that they're still experimenting to this degree. So the final point that I want to go over. Oh, I still have this little bar. Sorry about that. This is Ambi, of course. I know that in that original picture it was kind of hard to tell. This is Ambi doing a little bit of Snot Rocket. The final point that I want to make is that we need to tax the rich, okay? We need a wealth tax. We could start with just 1% of, like, a total wealth. If you have $1 billion, you pay 1% of your total wealth every year for taxes. We need to have an estate tax. This previously was known to try to get it blocked successfully as a death tax. This idea that when you die, you should pay some of the money that you have to the government rather than give it all to your children. And I find that this is relevant because Jeff Bezos is going to have more billionaire descendants than King Gizzard has albums. Elon Musk is going to have more billionaire descendants than King Gizzard has albums. And this should not stand. Right? That just doesn't make, to me, it doesn't make any sense. They didn't do jack shit. But regardless, and then arguably most importantly, in order to get any of this to actually happen, we have to repeal Citizens United. This is a court case in 2010 that determined that any company can just donate as much money as they want into politics. It's how we can have a bought and paid for government legally because of Citizens United. We need to repeal this shit as fast as possible. And this is the key message in Phantom Islands, okay? Regardless. You get the point. Either way, I hope that this was a little bit insightful about about Phantom Island. It's a pretty long discussion of the album, and I could have gone longer, but I needed to keep it a little concise. I love Phantom Island. Please put any comments that you have on the record or any questions. I'll be responding to them. From what it sounds like for King Gizzard coming up next, they were working on a synth album, another synth album a la the Silver Chord, but it seems that they're struggling to really pull it together into something that works, and they're mostly focusing on the touring right now, and that they're getting a lot of fulfillment from that. So I don't think that we're going to have another 2022 where we have 5 King Gizzard records all at one time anytime soon, but I'm just happy with whatever I get, especially if it's as good as this record and it's as compelling as it, even if it doesn't have the same Nonagon vibe that a lot of you are wanting. I think that it's an incredible artistic statement. So I hope that you all have a great day. You deserve it. And I don't know if I'll see you next time. Maybe the next time a King Gizzard album comes out. All right. See ya.